Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that this week has finally gotten the second part of its thing back in. The cinema thing. We've made it to the cinema. I have made it to the cinema. And while you're wondering who this I person is, my name is Tosin. I am the host of the show, and I am based up in a place called Bromsgrove in the middle of the country, with the country being the United Kingdom. Joining me as always on the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
Yes, who is quickly becoming our armchair correspondent. And Sean Harris.
Hello.
The man who is single-handedly keeping cinemas on the South Coast open.
Yeah, well, let's hope so, because, there's not a lot.
Well, yeah, but apparently at the moment, cinema is having a little bit of a renaissance in that there have been a couple of films since the cinemas, what's it called? The summer started, and people were thinking, oh, The Fall Guy didn't do that well, Furiosa didn't do that well. All of a sudden, some films have done way better than expected, such as like Bad Boys, Ride or Die did quite well. The Inside Out 2 has gone way past $1 billion and is going close to being one of the...
Really?
It's getting close to being one of the top 10 grossing movies of all time.
Get out of here. Really?
No, wow. Seriously. You know Barbie was huge last year, right?
Yeah.
Inside Out 2 at the moment has made more money than Barbie.
Wow.
No idea.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked. It got to like $1 billion in something like 10 days. And and it's one of those things where, remember there was a book that I think William Goldman wrote about screenwriting in Hollywood.
Screenwriting in Hollywood, yeah.
And his I think the opening line is something like rule number 1, nobody knows anything.
That's it.
And that everybody acts like they know stuff, and they act like, they can prognosticate and they can say, oh, this is what's going to happen. But the fact is, nobody really knows, and nobody can really tell why something has happened and something has hit as big as it does. And Inside Out 2 is currently, for me, is falling into that thing, because I'm like, I know Inside Out 1 is a brilliant film, but I didn't realize it was that much loved. And you don't get a film that big without repeat business, which means that a lot of people are going back to watch the film again. Which is so hey, I don't, as far as things are happening, the cinemas are getting filled up and we are still going to have things. I am all for that. I'm all for that. So, but anyway, Sean, just to say that the reason I was mentioning that line I came up with of Sean single-handedly keeping cinemas open on the South Coast, that wasn't actually my line. That's actually a quote from some feedback we got on the show.
Oh, really? Was it? Yeah? Oh, wow.
It was actually a quote from some feedback we got on the show, because I have my cousin, Taiwo, who is a regular listener of the show, and he got to 2 kids before I got to 2 kids and hasn't been able to make it to the cinema, and now I understand his pain. but he also, I think he listens to us as to sort of like, okay, what should I do? What should I watch? And all that. So he sends me a message saying, Tosin, how's it going? Finally catching up on the podcast. I went back to Godzilla -1 because I finally watched it last week. It's great to see the comparison between the damage of nuclear fallout and Godzilla, senseless, indiscriminate, and the comparison between the damage of nuclear fallout and Godzilla, senseless, indiscriminate beast. Loved so much about this film. and I think this is a lot comes from your review of this film, sure. He says,
right.
the way Godzilla charges up its heat ray, a realistic, in inverted commas, a realistic way of stopping Godzilla instead of bigger rockets / mystical MacGuffin. Depiction of the destruction of the cities after the war, and it was all done on a $15 million budget. My only gripe was that they turned on plot invincibility right at the end, but you can't begrudge them a happy ending after all that happened. Thanks for the review putting me onto this. So that's Sean, that's your review for putting me onto this.
Oh, good.
He says, keep up the good work, and thanks, Sean, for single-handedly keeping up cinema attendance figures on the South Coast.
Good lad.
Yes, so that's it. So speaking about cinema attendance on the South Coast, what have we seen this week? Sean, what have you gone to see?
Okay, well, this week I've seen Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine at the cinema. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Sharon, you?
I have been to see Twisters at the cinema, but I haven't seen Deadpool. and Wolverine.
Yes, you see now this is it. This is us being good old cinema goers. Keeping it. I have been to the cinema. I made it to the cinema this
Yay.
week, and I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine. The main reason was because obviously this film came out last week. It was run about last week, Wednesday, Thursday, and I was sat at home and I could begin to see where this film is beginning to break out of sort of like, the film buff silo and going into the general consciousness. And then there's like news articles about some things that are in the film. And I just thought, no, okay, I'm going to watch this film. Before spoilers come in and they spoil this film for me, I am going to the cinema. Thankfully, because it has quite a few F-bombs in it, it's a film that you can watch at 9:30 at night, which means I can put the kids to bed, leave the house, go to the cinema. So thank you, Deadpool Wolverine, for being on late enough for me to go to the cinema.
I think it's always good when when two of us, at least two of us, have seen a movie, because then you get two different contrasts. I think it's better really. So that's good. So we got two for everything.
So we go to and speaking about everything, let's go on to the Netflix and Friends side of things. So what have we got on the Netflix side of things? Netflix and Friends side of things. Sharon.
I have seen a Netflix film called Captive State that I barely remembered the name of, but I remember seeing it.
That's it. We see I'm sure we see loads of stuff which we forget about. We must watch so much. I do. I know I do. I watched some Lawrence Fishburne and Charlie Sheen film on Freevee, which was like where they were in a military prison camp, and it had his dad, and it was Charlie Sheen as well. So
Charlie Sheen and Martin Sheen.
Yes, and Lawrence Fishburne and a couple of other. So I'll be able to tell you. Hopefully, I'll be able to tell you what it is.
I'm trying to figure out what film that is now. Was it? It must have been a young. Was it a young Lawrence Fishburne or an old Lawrence Fishburne?
A middling Lawrence Fishburne. I think it must have been
around about the Matrix time.
A TV movie, I would think. I would have thought it would have been a TV movie. Yeah. So it's a military prison. So he's a military prison, and his dad's like the bloke in charge, and he puts him in with all black people, basically all black. So Lawrence Fishburne.
This is ringing the bell. It's ringing the bell, but I cannot remember what the title is.
I'm like Sharon. I just cannot remember what the title is. We need to have a look. But yeah, no. So, so he's sort of in the barrack. The prison bit he's in is with all the guys are black, and and someone takes something from his. I don't know if it's a bit of an anti-war movie or what, but yeah. So it's got Charlie Sheen, Martin Sheen, Lawrence Fishburne, and a bunch of other guys. We'll have to know what that is now, won't we? We'll have to find out.
No, but in the meantime, tell me, what have you watched at home?
Oh, okay. So I was telling Tosin, never believe this. You'd think my bottom hairs would be hurting, but I must have pulled a muscle in my back the other day, because every time I moved, it was like So I had a day of rest. So I binge watched a program which was on Amazon called Them, a series on Amazon called Them.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Shaun has recently had an operation. And it doesn't seem to be the site of the operation that's hurting.
No, it doesn't.
It seems
That's
to be
a bizarre thing.
Something totally unrelated in that weird whole, isn't the human body a very, very weird thing way?
I must have slept awkwardly, or perhaps compensating or whatever. But
it
was just like every time I moved, it was like
I had something wrong with my toe recently, and I went in and they were like, "Oh, we think it might actually be your hip." And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. But okay, cool. Let us fire away then. Let's fire away. So we have let's fire away in cinemas, and as is I won't. And what we're going to talk about first is Deadpool and Wolverine. Shaun, if you don't mind, I will take this away.
Of course, I much prefer that, because I just give my reactions more, whereas you guys can give a much better synopsis than I can.
Yeah. Okay. So Deadpool and Wolverine. This is where to even start with this film? This is the third Deadpool movie that we have, and this show stars Ryan Reynolds reprising his role as Deadpool, Wade Wilson, and Hugh Jackman coming back after he had seemingly retired from playing Wolverine to play Wolverine again, and this film is also the first time that Deadpool has entered the MCU. Now, for a lot of you who might be listening who might not know or care about all the legal shenanigans that happen behind the scene, which means that you might see a whole bunch of Marvel characters, but they're not necessarily in the same universe. So there's the films that are made by Marvels, your Iron Man, your Captain America. Then there's a whole thing with Spider-Man where you have them as Sony, and then you had for ages the X-Men. The reason why you haven't seen Captain America, Chris Evans' Captain America, and the X-Men in the same film is because their rights were owned by another studio, which is Fox, who have been making all these X-Men movies for since 2000 or whatever it was that they've been making those films. And Disney bought Fox, and that meant that everybody, so all the fanboys, like myself included, were like, oh my god, that means we're probably going to see the X-Men coming into the MCU. But they have been trying to figure out how they're going to do this. But when they bought them, they had Deadpool, which, well, a lot of the X-Men movies, people had already decided. I mean, by the time they finished with Dark Phoenix, they decided that the X-Men are dead. The X-Men are dead, and the only thing from that universe that was working was Deadpool, because you had two movies that were big, massive hits. Ryan Reynolds had to become this whole sort of meta thing and everything like that. Deadpool was working, and people were wondering, oh, but Deadpool is like, an 18-rated, foul-mouthed guy who cuts people's limbs off and everything like that. How is he going to fit into the sort of sanitized PG-13 world of the Marvel Universe? And there was the whole thing, and this is the film. So this is all to give the background, and this is the film that brings Deadpool into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And don't we know it?
And don't we know it? Don't we know it? And the thing, look, so if you are the kind of person who has complained about Marvel and saying that there's too much to watch because you have to link all these different things to actually understand what's going on, this film leans into that. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is in this film that I think if you can watch the film and not really have to know the background because they explain it in the film. But to have the full thing, you have to have watched probably Loki season 1 to figure out what's going on with the Time Variance Authority. You have to know what's because this film is like a meta commentary on the whole thing I have just explained about Disney buying Fox and how are you going to integrate these characters into the Fox universe and everything. The plot of this film is pretty much kind of like, it's a satire. The plot of this film, as far as I'm concerned, is a satire of the whole Disney, Fox, the X-Men movies had gotten crap. It's a satire of that whole thing. It is very much made for, I think, the fans, the people who like this. Yeah. It is very much made for the fans. I think you could watch it and not get it, but I think you would be listening and go, "What's up with that? What's up with that? Why is he in it? Why is that a big deal?" Because there's things that they do. People have talked about cameos in this film, and if you have avoided spoilers, there are going to be people showing up in this film that you will not expect to be in this film. That you 100% do not expect to be in this film. The way they even do it, and the payoff lines, and the way that they essentially, and this is Ryan Reynolds walking around ripping it out of everything. He is extracting urine, taking the best, however you want to say it, out of everything that moves. He's making fun of Marvel, making fun of Disney, making fun of Fox. Making fun of the X-Men, because Deadpool is a character that originally he knows he's in a comic book. He knows he's in a comic book, and this character knows he's in a film, and is constantly commenting on everything that's going on. He even comments on there's even a line about Hugh Jackman's divorce. So he doesn't. Okay, but what I thought about this film, I don't want to talk about the plot of this film because I don't really think I think the plot is nice and meta if you understand what's going on in the background with Fox and Disney and people who made X-Men movies and people who made the Iron Man movies and everything like that. The plot is nice and meta, but I don't really think it matters that much. No. I really don't think it matters that much. But I have to say, I laughed so hard in this film. There were so many bits where I was laughing hard. There were bits where
I mean, yeah, with the I like. Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm just laughing so loud with all the surprises and that, and it's like,
yeah.
That's like, it's like, oh my god,
yeah. There's all these things, and obviously we want to try and we're trying to very hard to not give any spoilers or give anything away, but because I think that this is a film that, oh my god, don't let anybody spoil anything for you, because some of the payoffs are just glorious. Some of the payoffs are wonderful. There's bits where characters show up on screen, and I'm like,
oh yeah, I know. It's like, whoa, where did this? The way they all sort of. Oh yeah. By the way, how's well, how's I like the way, and it's just the one-line comments, like really quick.
Yes,
so and so this happened to so. Oh, sorry about that. It's the quips.
yeah.
The guys are gone up against him, and so they're all mentioned anyway. Even if they're mentioned, if they don't appear, they're still mentioned, aren't they?
Yeah,
Like,
and I really feel like it's the kind of thing that you could go into a spoiler, but bigger spoiler. But this film, this in the same way, like I remember talking about Spider-Man: No Way Home, and Spider-Man: No Way Home was a bit of a commentary on the Spider-Man movies and the way the Spider-Man movies have been made and how the rights have been in different places, and it's sort of like honoring that. And this film is like that, but with the Fox universe. This film is like that about pretty much the whole film is a commentary on how these films are made. So
yeah, definitely.
There's bits where it's kind of like how they do this thing in The Boys as well, where they have like different layers of satire. So there's a scene where you have Deadpool sat down with, no, I'm not going to say who it is, but he's sat down with a character. He's kind of saying, oh yeah, so when's the boss gonna get here? And he could be talking about a character within the universe of the film, or he could be talking about Kevin Feige, who is the big head honcho.
Big head honcho, yeah.
He could be talking about, when is he going to get here? When's he going to tell me what I have to do? All that kind of stuff. Is he going to let me in? And it is, and the whole film is just like that. And I laughed hard. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was gory. I think the opening scene. Oh my god, the opening scene. Because one of the big problems when this film was announced is that people said that we had Logan, and Logan was a brilliant film, and it was a brilliant way of ending the Hugh Jackman's character arc. Like, Logan was a brilliant film. And when they first came out, people were like, oh my god, but you're going to ruin Logan because that was a perfect way to say goodbye to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and now you're going to bring him back and everything. And they said the whole way, it's like, look, don't worry, we are going to honor the memory of Logan. We're going to honor the memory of Logan. And they both do that, and they also very much not do that. Right at the beginning of the film, like with the whole thing, which is never. Anyway, I'll stop talking because I could talk for ages. Sean, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there. I mean, there's some great plots in it, and they do a well, you even see they show. Oh yeah. The other bit you mentioned as well, like the credits are going on as well as the post-credit scene, which is absolutely fantastic. But even the bits of all like previous movies where they come, and all the ways, it is, and I think they're trying to sort of reset everything. I think this is like a film that I got the feeling that this was the film they're going to, like, because some of the comments he makes are like, whoa, this is like, we're not
like he's like a Marvel Jesus.
Yeah, ready for a new thing with, like, a new take on the X-Men, a new take on the so they're going to start the whole process off again, maybe. I mean, if everybody's not too superheroed out, but. Yeah, I like the. I'm glad they put him in that uniform as well. What you see in the thing there, because
that they've gone for a comics accurate uniform.
Yeah.
Comics,
so and even I know what you're talking about. It was just, this film was just so much fun. It was just really, really was a great watch, and I'm probably going to go and see the 3D version. I think just purely for the fact that, like you say, the opening scene and all stuff like that. I think it'd be pretty good to see him 3D myself. But yeah,
I mean, the opening scene is just so irreverent. It's so irreverent. I mean, there's even a line in it where Deadpool says to Wolverine, he says like, "Oh yeah, there's this thing called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're joining, but it's like, unfortunately, you're joining at a bit of a low point." And he actually says that.
He actually says that.
He actually says that to him, which is just him making, like, ripping it out of everything. And one of the things that I mean, I have gone on record as saying as I hate the multiverse. I do not think the multiverse is good. I think it leads to bad storytelling and eventually leads to everything falling apart. And I think the only way you can pull off a multiverse thing properly, which is what the Spider-Man. Yes, I know. Stop talking. Get off the stage. But it's what the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, the Spider-Verse movies do. Is the only way you can actually do that is if you make fun of the multiverse, is if you take the piss out of the multiverse. That's the only way in which you can actually go. I think you can go forward with it, and this film does that almost perfectly. It does that almost perfectly about how stupid a comment it is. There's even a bit. There's okay. All I'll say is that there's a bit where Deadpool pretty much is giving a speech, and the speech is pretty much to the audience. So saying like oh yeah, sure. What you were saying is like, haven't you had enough? Haven't you had enough? Why are we still doing this? But yeah, I liked it. I loved it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. I thought Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds were brilliant together.
Brilliant.
I think even with
I think there was one scene, and I think it's the scene when like the multi characters turn up. I think there's one scene where you can actually see that Hugh Jackman is actually really, really enjoying himself. He's almost like he's almost like trying not to laugh. Do you know what I mean? I sort of caught it in the thing. He's like thinking, oh, "This is great. This is just great." Yeah, no, good stuff.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. I think if you've liked your Marvel stuff, this film is going to be great. And I just had a big stupid grin on my face the whole way through. And it's we'll see what they're going to do next. We'll see what they're going to do next. So that is it. How many stars did you give it, Sean?
Oh, this would be a huge 4. Huge 4.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
possibly.
4.
Yeah, it's a 4 all the way. It was just so much fun. It was just
yeah.
I was trying to work out another criteria that would about giving things, and I would watch this again without hesitation. You know what I mean? Some films,
100%.
We're probably going to talk about later. I wouldn't bother again, but
honestly, I mean, this film was so and there's so many bits, like there's scenes in it where you're just this is a film that is built to be paused and looked over every screen to see how many in-jokes they're putting in there. There's bits where I'm going, okay, what's that sticking out of the ground? What's that? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? I was like, come on, just stop the film for a second. I need to figure out what that is.
But that, to me, one of the greatest moments was like, the hood when they end up in the the hood bit. Yeah, that was to me. That was like, oh, what? How about that? But this is, Deadpool was just like, oh, he's just so excited, isn't he? The bit I'm talking about. Yeah,
I know exactly the bit you're talking about, and you see, and Sharon's face is beautifully is beautifully encapsulating for us what is going to happen with these films when people who have seen the film are trying to talk about the film around people who haven't seen the film without spoiling. The people who haven't seen it are just going to be like, yeah, I'm very, very happy for you. Yeah, you saw a great film. Well, the people who have seen the film and are trying not to spoil, are just going to be like, oh my god, that bit, oh, you don't want to talk, oh my god, that was so great. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a miracle of a film. I think it's a little bit of a miracle of a film within this whole sort of superhero thing. I think it's brilliant. But let us leave that 4 stars for Deadpool and Wolverine. And now we move on to Netflix and Friends, and we're going to talk Captive State. So Sharon, this is the film that you couldn't even remember the title of. So I am looking forward to big things from this review. And also, by the way, Sean, the Charlie Sheen, Cadence. And you can tell how old it is because Lawrence Fishburne is still called Larry in it. Okay. It's still called Larry Fishburne. That is going back a while. All right, cool. So Sharon, tell us about Captive State.
Yeah, Captive State is a film that is set in the future. There has been an alien invasion, and because the aliens have shown such amazing technical and sheer numbers, have just basically Earth has decided collectively that there's no point in putting up a fight because we're dead in the water. It's a fait accompli. So the nations of the world have come together and said, okay, we'll accept your overlordship of Earth. You'll leave us alone and we'll just give you certain sort of vassalage, basically. And we're in a world where this state has gone on for a little while, where people have got used to having these overseers, or there's a name for them in the film, I can't remember. But we are living in this state, and there is like people who cooperate with them, or collaborate with them. People who cooperate with them, and just try to make sure that the world carries on as seamlessly as possible. And for the population of the Earth, everyone has to have an identity chip, so they can be tracked and everyone knows where they are. And certain things in that civilian life has been restricted. All armies have been disbanded, so there are no standing armies anywhere in the world, and everyone basically has their role to play in society. Amongst all this seemingly, like, okay, we've been given a bad deal, but we're going to live with it and accept it, there is a pocket of resistance. And we see in sort of North America, in a certain area, I forget where it is, Chicago seems to ring a bell, there has been a resistance, and there have been severe reprisals against this resistance, and one whole neighborhood has just been devastated. And we only find out about this in hints and words and messages. And this is after this, sort of severe reprisal against his resistance. And now there are hints that there's another sort of resistance cell forming. And the story is that John Goodman is like a police officer who's trying to investigate about this resistance cell and trying to follow the different leads to identify the members of this cell in this community that he was a police officer in before, and now he's sort of a police officer under this new regime. And he's trying to deal with people who've lost relatives because they were in this other resistance group, and trying to stop people from, making an irreparable mistake.
Yeah.
And the story goes on.
Very well done for a film you couldn't remember the title of. Very well. So, what do you? We're waiting on tenterhooks here. What did you think of it, Sharon? Tell us.
If I can use an expression that my Australian friends used to use, I thought it was toot.
I don't even know what that means, but I think I can take it from context. I can infer the meaning from context.
I sat and watched this with my brother, and he gave up after about half an hour, and he cleared off. And I said, I've started this. I'm going to watch it to the end, so at least I've got something to review for the podcast. I'm going to do this for the Netflix versus cinema world, people. And
thank you for your service.
So I stuck it out. I mean, I thought it was deeply flawed. I thought none of the characters were that particularly interesting. I thought you didn't see enough of the aliens to recognize them as a threat. It was obviously done on a restricted budget. So when you do see the aliens, you see them and you go, "Oh yeah, is that it?" To me, it was just I did not feel any sense of peril. I did not really sense any. When characters sort of get lost, I didn't feel their sacrifice. To me, I didn't recognize the fact that there'd be any way on this planet that an alien would turn up and we'd all go, all right, fair enough, we're not going to fight. That's not going to happen. I can't imagine, Hezbollah suddenly going, you know what, we're just going to disarm. Or any nation of the world that's going to say, you know what, yeah, we're just going to disband our army and we're going to let you take care of everything, and we're just going to let these little bone plants in on it. We're going to carry on as happy as Larry.
Yeah.
No, that's just, so the whole premise was just like, well, this is just ridiculous. This would just, it's your basic, your foundation of your story is just made out of sand. So it's nothing you build upon that spongy substance is going to actually hold up a decent story. So I thought it was a bit of nonsense. It was just.
So you mean? Do you mean that they don't even try and intimate that, or maybe in the past there was a fight, there was a war that Earth lost?
They were saying you just have this picture of this man in a suit, sort of basically shaking hands with an alien representative or something, and sort of going, yes, we're going to give over all our rights. The world, I surrender on behalf of the whole world. It was just piffle really. So I would say I barely made it through it, and when I did, I was like, I'm glad that's over. I could barely remember the name of it, and if you'd asked me in a week's time, tell me the name of that film that you reviewed last week, I'd be thinking, oh, what was it again? I would say it would probably scrape into a 2-star, but I'd probably say it deserved a 1.5, really.
Okay.
Because it was filler of the sort that you'd find in a video shop in the 1980s that they would make by the dozen on a very low budget, and they'd get one big name in it. Like the big name was John Goodman, who would it's almost like he used to be really famous sort of actor that you'd get into these films. I mean, he's still a good actor. He does turn up and he sort of goes, wow, he's really good in some things. But every now and then you see him in something thinking, you literally did this because someone said, do you want to do this thing for, a favour for a student?
What is it? Well, oh, okay. Now I think you might hit it's in the head on hitting the nail on the head there because, well, when you say favorite for a student, because it actually has a good cast. You have John Goodman, you have Ashton Sanders, who was in Moonlight.
Yep.
He played the middle Chiron in Moonlight, and so you had Jonathan Majors, who is cancelled now, but back then was like an up and coming star. You have Vera Farmiga. You have Alan Ruck. He's well known. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So they should be a good cast. So when we first started watching, we're thinking this should be good, and then it quickly dissolves into
yeah.
something that was just you. I literally barely made it through a conscious.
I think that it was yeah, it was. It's directed by Rupert Wyatt as well, who's he directed the first Caesar Planet of the Apes movie, the first reboot thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, it has good people, but I think it was when you talk about the money thing, I think it was independently made, but it is I will yeah, but anyway, well 1.5 stars, 1.5 stars, 2-1, whichever Schrodinger one you want to go with for
yeah,
Captive State. Let us save you from that, Sharon, and not have you talk about it anymore.
yeah.
And you you can now free up that brain space and just forget about the fact
It's gone. It's
that
gone already.
you ever saw this film. And let us go back to cinemas and let us talk Twisters. And this is Twisters that both you and Sean saw, which I believe that I believe Twisters is like it's kind of a sequel to Twister from the 90s, but yeah, there's some connective tissue, but not majorly. So
It's a sequel in as much as it features tornadoes, and it features people driving around in big vehicles chasing
yep.
tornadoes. That's your connection to the first film. And they have these they made the machines Dorothy's.
Dorothy, yep.
The
Scarecrow.
trying
Yeah.
trying to they're like this.
Yeah, they got like three
you
trucks
see,
called Scarecrow, Tin Man,
yeah,
and
they've
Lion.
got the nods, the
Lion.
Dorothy,
Yeah.
yeah, the Wizard of Oz nods. And so yeah, you see Dorothy 5 in this, whereas in the last Twisters film, the last Dorothy that the original cast made was called Dorothy 4. So you know that their work continued at the university beyond the last film, and
Yep.
that these people are picking up the ends of that sort of technology and bringing it into their own vision of the future. But the story is basically students at the beginning of the film are chasing tornadoes, trying to study them, trying to find out how tornadoes work, how you can get a better early warning system, more or less like the film Twister.
Yeah.
And then horrible things happen, a bit like in the film Twister. And one of them decides that no, she's not going to do that anymore. She's not going to be a storm chaser anymore because nasty things happen when you chase storms, a bit like in the film Twister. And then a few years pass, and then something happens that someone they used to know says, "Oh, come and do this because it'd be really
Just
amazing.
when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
I'm going to do this, and it's about the science, not the thrills." A bit like in the film Twister.
Yeah.
And then we see a lot of mayhem, storms, vehicles, things flying in the air. You know the drill.
And to be honest with you, that is what I want from this film. I want the mayhem. I want the mayhem, and it's like, yeah, I know you need to have some semblance of a storyline that kind of holds things together. But what we came here to see a cow go round and round, like 3 times past the camera. That's what we came here to see. So with that being said, okay, we know we have things, blah blah blah, twisters, blah, blah, blah. Sean, what did you think?
Okay, well, yeah. So this film, oh dear, I don't know. So cliched, so cliched. It really was. I was like, oh my god, And I mean, there's times I know I went in expecting this to be, yes, I'm gonna know that this is quite implausible. A lot of this, or if not implausible, incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Oh, let's grab that. Yeah. So this thing
Yeah.
again caused mayhem, and yet there's certain times they manage to stop people getting sucked up, and it's like, do you know what I mean? It's just, really, really cliche. And I couldn't believe for an instant that there was I didn't really think there was any body chemistry between what were supposed to be two of the characters myself, or I just didn't believe it. It was.
That's the Glenn Powell and the Daisy Edgar Jones
Yeah,
character.
and also the dude who was at the beginning of the film that brings her back in. I don't know who he is, but I don't know.
Anthony Ramos.
Anthony Ramos. I just don't. I mean, I didn't. He come across as like you're awful. What an awful actor you are. You know what I mean? You cannot act to save your life. You're just so unconvincing.
That's weird. I actually quite like him.
Do you? Really?
Yeah, because he was in A Star Is Born. He was in Hamilton on the stage. He was in the last Transformers movie, which is probably, I don't think anybody came out of that looking good.
No.
So he was in The Heights. Yeah,
and they didn't really, for he brought her back in because obviously he had a real major crush on her, and he didn't really fight. And he was like, "Oh, go off with the other bloke." Oh, right, okay, then that's fair enough. I'm not going to be too worried. Maybe a little bit worried, but in the end, it's all going to be nice. It's all going to be nicey. And
yeah, I think in opposition, or so like different from Deadpool and Wolverine, where we were like, oh, we don't have to give any spoilers. I feel like you can't really give spoilers for this film. You kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so the love triangle, whatever, wasn't really a love triangle in any way, shape, or form. I didn't feel, as I say, and it's just this was just what I was expecting it to be. It was just a fill-in. In fact, it was a bit like Sharon was saying about Captive State or whatever. It was just like where this is going. I mean, this was better than Sharon's review of Captive State, obviously, but it just to me it was just full of cliches, really. So it was totally plausible and unbelievable. But then you did get the mayhem.
Yeah, I did go to see this with my friend Rachel, who I work with him as part of our bubble. So me and Rachel went to see it with the expectation that there would be some sort of connection to the earlier film. And we were actually kept waiting to see if there'd be a cameo or there'd be something to link it to the first film.
Turn out that, guess what? She's his daughter.
We were just waiting for something for it to be other than, it's just like Twister plus 20. It's not a sequel. It's just like we've just remade the same film 20 years later with a completely different cast. But they're basically doing the same thing. So we just felt, we came away thinking we were expecting something other than Dorothy 5. That literally is the only sort of visual link to the first Twister film. There were Easter eggs throughout. Apparently there were Easter eggs throughout, but you really had to be a Twister aficionado to spot them. So we both felt a little bit let down by that, the fact that it's called Twisters, but it could have been called Tornado Alley, because for me it had no connection to that first film at all. They were just like, yeah, to me it just didn't.
I mean, I've got to be honest. I wasn't really invested in the first film either. I know people raved about it, but I didn't think
I did like the first film. I did like the first film.
I have a soft spot for the first film because I remember it being it was the next big special effects extravaganza after Jurassic Park.
Yes, it came out in a similar time.
Yeah, and I remember the whole idea that they were pretty much saying, well, look, you see that Twister that's destroying that building? That Twister isn't really there. That building isn't really there. We made that in a computer. And I remember going, whoa, that's amazing. And I do remember that there's a bit of his Girl Friday thing going on with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton in the first film. But I actually quite respect the fact that they haven't tried to shoehorn in characters from the first film or try to shoehorn in some sort of legacy sequel to it. I personally, because there's a lot of these legacy sequels being made where like the worst offender recently for me was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, where you try to bring people back from the original films and you try to shoehorn them in there when they have absolutely nothing to do. So for me, I kind of respect that.
They overdid it. Yeah, they definitely overdid it in Ghostbusters. But you would have liked to have seen a nod, because they had a scene where they were like in a house with lots of photographs, and we was both of them going like, we tried to see this if the photographs like that.
Is that Helen Hunt?
Apparently they did have one of Bill Paxton in it, and Bill Paxton's son has a small role in this, so that's another nod. But yeah, we wanted some sort of link, really.
The one character I did like in this film was the girl's mum that worked on the farm.
Yes,
I thought I quite liked her when he goes, "Oh, he's staying." So yeah. Anyway, I agree with you. Yeah, there was a lack of chemistry, and there was for us it lacked that sort of that
that connection which we wanted.
Yeah.
It's an
but what about-
enjoyable enough film, but I would give it a 3 stars.
But how was the mayhem? How was the mayhem?
Yeah, and mayhem, but again, it was slightly inconsistent. How it was tearing buildings apart and driving a huge tram down the road, but then you've got someone running across the road to save a heroine, or they're suddenly driving a vehicle, and it's like if it's powerful enough to drive a tram, surely it would move this vehicle.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought
and
that.
They're driving away
I thought
from it.
that
It's like,
tram
well,
scene.
they're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
Gone. And they're like ripping the bricks out of a wall. It's like if it's strong enough to rip bricks out of a wall, then it will destroy that one thing.
Yeah. And as I say, that's where it comes to the time of like saving people. And also, oh yeah, Sharon, the bit where we've got to go, it's going to hit the town, we've got to go back, we can't lay the stuff because we've got to go back to the town and help the people. And they're going, go. The people are sort of helping themselves, but they're still going, move over there. It reminded me a bit of that one of those Alliance films, what are they called, where it's just like, let's everybody run.
Yeah.
And the swimming pool bit, and to me it was just, they couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, let's save this person. Oh, look, they're going to be sucked up. Oh no, I've got you. Don't worry, I've got you. It's like, come on.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things.
The other one.
One of the things that sticks in my mind with the first one is that you do have that whole thing where the Twister is destroying buildings, and there's a whole bit where the Twister catches up with them towards the end of the first film, and they find this piece of metal that's stuck in the ground, and they might tie themselves. Water pump, and they might tie themselves to it with like belts. A belt, with a belt or something like that, and it keeps them down on the floor. And I do remember thinking at the time, because I was an impressionable young, I was like, oh wow, you can do that? Okay, good. When I think about it now, I'm like, how strong is that belt? And forget about how strong that belt is.
One piece of metal, yeah.
Forget about how strong the belt is. How strong are your torsos? Because wouldn't the belt just go right through your torsos? I mean, it's kind of, but now I think about it now, I'm like, but I will keep it. I'll keep the flag flying for Twister for 16-year-old Tosin.
Right.
I would say I would still give the original Twister sort of 4-star probably for sheer enjoyment value that I liked it.
Yeah.
But this one would a 3 for me.
Yeah, I mean,
and probably from Rach as well.
Yeah, I think for all its faults and everything like that, it was what I was expecting. So I wasn't too annoyed with what was going to go on because I knew exactly what was going to happen. So yeah, this is a film I won't ever bother to watch it again. I'll give it a 3-star, but I'll never ever watch this one. Same with the original Twisters. I'll never watch that again. I don't think.
Oh no,
it's funny.
I think I would track this one down and try and find it. Right. So now we go back to Netflix and Friends. I believe this is Amazon Prime now, and Shaun in his sort of like
incapacitated state.
Thank you very much for that word, because I was about to say invalid, and I was like, that's not the word. I was about to say that is not the word. Right, in his incapacitated state, so all of them.
Them, yes.
Yeah, so all of them. Now, this is a thing that with me knowing stuff behind. Essentially, I know a lot about TV. I know a lot about TV that can blag things I have never actually watched. And I know this was written by Lena Waithe, and because it's Lena Waithe, a lot of stuff that she writes has to do with either essentially the intersection between the queer and the black experience in America. And I know that it's a lot about the black experience in America in some sort of like sci-fi killing way, but because of Lena Waithe, I expect it to be weird. So Shaun, tell us about how weird this is.
Okay, so yeah, this film is basically about I think they call it the Great Migration. It's a black family. They're moving from North Carolina to Los Angeles, and it's a perfectly built estate. And obviously, they sort of turn up at the estate. They're like all the other neighbours. This is the 1950s, so they're all like,
Oh, okay. So what era was this? 50s?
So this is 1950s with all the. So it's got the nice cars, but this is like a perfect estate and. Anyway, so they
it always made me think when I saw bits. It made me think of Suburbicon, the George Clooney movie.
Oh yeah. No, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than this. So
okay, cool.
Also, there's something that happened when they lived in North Carolina with the House's family. Basically, it's a husband and wife and 2 daughters, and there was something. They did have a son, which something rather nasty happened to. But anyway, so they decided to move away, and they've all got these like imaginary people or ghosts that sort of turn up. So each of the older girl has got like when she goes to school, she's got like an imaginary friend who's like, oh, you're really pretty, but there's something quite sinister about them. The wife has got this priest that turns up. The husband's got this, well, I don't know what you'd call him, like some New Orleans dude with a top hat, and so he's got, and the little girl's got this madam that she's reading this book, like a strict teacher that smells, and so they've all got these I don't know if you'd call them little demons that sort of live with them, and obviously it's to do with trauma that happened to him through the past. The dad had gone through the First World War, and also, and then so they got these stories, and obviously they're very, very much disliked by the rest of the neighborhood, who decide to they want to get rid of them. They want to it starts off fairly sort of subtly, and then becomes much more in your face of them trying to get and lots of incidents happen, and the girls do some disturbing things, and the characters that turn up, as I say, each has got their own, I guess you'd call them a guilty conscience, and there's something that happened in the first that carries on towards the end, what you find out in the last episode. There's one episode and there's one of the episodes, which I think is episode 10, where it's very much goes back in time to what happened to this preacher who wanted basically to get rid of all the black people, and does something rather nasty. So but way back in like the 1800s, and obviously for some of the things that would happen, you would say that in this is where this particular incident happened, and they'd sort of covered it over and built on it. So you've got a little connotations, So this was really intriguing. I had to, and the other stories as well. There's this other story, the sort of main wife, should we say, of the people that live on the estate, that comes up with all these horrible ideas. There's something, the milkman likes her. She likes a milkman. She disappears, and I won't say what happens, but the family get blamed for it. Family get blamed for this disappearance. So it's like, oh, what have you done? And I mean, it's quite intense. It's quite, and it's a real commentary on what they call the Great Migration, because there's other black families in it, because the wife goes to visit other people that have moved into that area. Which happens to be Compton. But it was intriguing. It was for me, which it's not normally my cup of tea. And maybe it did lull in a couple of the middling episodes, but it was something that I had to watch. It just kept me gripped. It just kept me.
All right.
It kept me. I saw. Do you ever get in those things where I want to see what happens next? I want to see what happens next. I want to see what happens next. And it ended. There must be some more series, I think, because it ends in a really, really quite interesting way. So the last episode.
Yeah, I was just actually looking that up, and there's 2 seasons of it. But but it's like an anthology. So the second season is actually set in the 90s.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So wherever that story ended is where it's ending.
All right. So that's ended that story. Yeah. Right. So this will be a different one then. Oh well, that's okay then. So but I found this really, really quite intriguing, quite sinister, quite well thought out, well acted. I thought the actress or actor, they call them now, where you played the little girl, was really good.
Oh yeah.
Really convincing of like this horrible, smelly, witchy sort of thing. I was, and it was a great social commentary of what it would have been like around that time, and you can actually feel. So you think, I can imagine it actually.
You just feel uncomfortable.
You feel uncomfortable. Made you feel uncomfortable when it's people, which I was uncomfortable enough. So this made me feel even more uncomfortable. But anyway, no pun intended. So I thought this was good. It kept me intrigued. Interesting. I guess what the person who did this didn't do that us, did they? Because it.
No.
Oh,
it wasn't George. It wasn't Jordan Peele. Although it did. There are similarities with this. I remember when this first came out. I remember when this first came out, and I saw them, I saw it and everything like that, and I thought that's probably going to be very good. I'm not going to watch it because there are bits where it comes to like things about black trauma and that. And I have to admit, at the moment, there's only so much I can watch.
Yeah, for sure.
There's things I'm like, I'm happy this exists. It needs to exist. It should have a place, but there's only so much. This was definitely one of those where I was like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to. I don't want to go through another thing about like where bad things happen to black people. It's. I mean, I have enough of that in life. But I'm happy. I'm happy that at least you enjoyed it and it wasn't bad. It was at least good.
Yeah, it was terrifically well acted, and as I say, it was quite, just an interesting concept.
So how many stars would you give it?
I'd probably give this one a 4 because I mean it's not very often I have to keep watching something. You know, I can sort of normally if I'm watching something, I'll turn it off and go and make a cup of tea and come back and finish watching it. But this was
get distracted.
Yeah, so I thought, what's going to happen next? So yeah, really interesting. So yeah, quite impressed.
Oh, cool, good stuff. So 4 stars for them. Well, season 1, I guess. Them season 1 on Amazon Prime. Right, all that's left is to say who has won this week. Who do you think has won this week, people? Netflix or cinema?
I reckon it's a tie.
You reckon it's a tie? Okay, and Sharon reckons it's cinema.
Cinema. Yeah.
And Sharon, you would be right. You have got it right. Cinema has taken it this week with with an average of 3.5 stars with Netflix.
Oh yeah, of course. The Alien film. Yeah. Oh,
yes, Captive State hold.
Yeah, of course.
Hold it below the waterline. Just hold it below the waterline. But I think in a week in which I think cinema has shown what it can do with Deadpool and Wolverine. I think it's really. But that film is. I would love to talk about how much that whole film is a commentary
we could talk
on how the film gets made.
Yes, definitely, 100%.
The whole film is a commentary on how the film gets made.
And it was all the way through, wasn't it? All the way through the film,
all the way through the film. It's like there is a real world equivalent for everything that is happening in that film at the same time. But it's and twisters, because even if it's a mediocre story, hey, big bold mayhem that can only be seen on the biggest screen closest to you. So right, that's it for it. And until next week, when God knows what we'll be seeing. I don't even know what's in the cinema.
No,
because I'm still high.
Yeah,
I'm still high on the fact.
Go on. Yeah, I was going to say there's a secret screening next week, Sharon.
All right.
I think Tuesday.
That'd be good.
I've booked. So, and then there's a secret screaming. I think the week after. So I don't know.
Okay.
Like another horror one.
Yeah, I guess so. But
I'll be up for that.
The secret screening's Tuesday, and I'm trying to think what else there might be something. Anyway, we'll see. I'm sure there's some other stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm good for Tuesday. I think I'm doing a wedding next week. My first wedding that I've had to be officiating at for a while, and I'll be at rehearsal next week. So.
That'll be all right then.
All right, cool. So, talking about cinemas doing well. So, Deadpool and Wolverine is doing very well.
Is it doing well? Oh,
it is doing very well. It made about $500,000 in its first weekend. And bearing in mind that the 2 previous Deadpool movies made about $800,000 in the entire run, it's doing very well. Yeah.
I guess the reviews must have been good as well then.
I think the reviews are almost unless the people are already dead set against superhero stuff. The reviews are pretty much saying, they're like, this is fun. This is fun.
This is fun. It is. It's great fun all the way through.
It's like fun. If you really don't like the superhero things, if you really don't like Marvel, it's probably gonna go over your head.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, there's the bit. Sorry, Sharon, we're gonna do it again.
I'll say no.
Sean, the bit where that guy shows up, and the bit where that person shows up, the bit where that.
That's great, isn't it? Really, yeah. And the comments they make as well. You know, like especially our good friend. Yeah.
I mean, no, you can't say that. Oh, no, okay, I'm gonna have to blank that out now, Sean. That's a dead giveaway. I'm glad Sharon didn't hear it. I'm gonna have to blank that out. All right, cool. Anyway, until next week. Next week where we will find something to see. I don't think there's anything in the cinema. I think everybody's running from Deadpool and Wolverine, apart from Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Yeah, what's that all about?
That is a kids movie. It's a kids movie. A guy draws stuff with a purple crayon and they come to life. The trailer does not look promising as much as I love Zachary Levi. Anyway,
so you couldn't take the daughter to see it then?
I could take her to see it. That is probably about the only way I would see that film. Quite frankly, that's probably about the only way I would see that film. Until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us.